Why hello there, and welcome back to Some Weirdo on the Internet Reviews Obscure Role-Playing Games, the series where I do that thing in the title. And in this installment, I will be reviewing a game to which nobody could reasonably take offense. Released in 1999 by Sanguine Productions, Ironclaw is an anthropomorphic fantasy role-playing game. Now, a fantasy setting is actually a really good place to stick anthropomorphic animals because you can just replace all the elves, dwarves, and gnomes with deer, boars, and moles, and people are going to come in preloaded with various trait associations for those animals, so you don't really need to explain every single race from the ground up. But does this game have more going for it than just the funny animals? Let's find out. Ironclaw is set on the island of Calabria, a more or less mid-Renaissance Southern European type setting with early firearms and various houses all fighting for political power. It's, not really my kind of thing, honestly, but, you know, everything doesn't have to be for me. And that aside, the location is actually fairly well detailed with all the locations and important persons, the goings-on, history, calendars, maps, all of the stuff that you would expect in a nice, fleshed-out setting. Honestly, it's a fairly average setting, but one that is presented very well, and if that's your kind of thing, you would probably like it. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 because while it's well done, there's really nothing unique about it other than the fact that all the people are anthropomorphic animals. So let's get to them anthropomorphic animals. Character creation in Ironclaw is a simple 12-step process, which isn't actually as complicated as 12-step process makes it sound. So let's make us a character. Step 1. Name our character. Let's just go with Peakweek. Step 2. Choose our race and career. We're going to go with Bat and Green and Purple Mage. Step 3. Assign an array of dice to our traits, including race and career. Step 4. Write down our race and career skills with their associated trait dice. Step 5. Write down our racial gifts and flaws and subtract their value from our starting points. Step 6. Calculate our character's abilities. Step 7 and 8. Select up to 10 points each of character gifts and flaws. Step 9. Spend remaining points on skills and select favored uses. Step 10. Select our equipment. And steps 11 and 12. Calculate all of our attack and defense values and encumbrance. Overall, I like the character creation system. It's got a lot of options with 24 races and 70 some odd careers to choose from, even though Bard is not one of them. I do like some of the unique abilities that the different races get, like how bats can fly and shrews have a venomous bite, and how each race has a cost associated with it so they didn't have to actually try to make every single race balanced. However, I would like to have seen some non-mammalian options and something of a hard difference in size between the races, because the way it is, a squirrel can be as big as a bear. But those are just little personal nitpicks, and in the end it's just the stylistic choice that they chose to go with. The careers, on the other hand, only give you 4 skills, or 3 skills and a genre of magic. So while there are a lot of options, aside from the 4 that give you magic, none of them provide anything in any way unique or distinctive, and it kind of comes across feeling like 16 pages of the book that could have been 6. So overall, a good amount of options, perhaps a bit too many. The races are nice, but the careers provided are kind of meh, but overall a good amount of freedom in your character customization, and multiclassing is actually a thing that's useful in this game and easy. I even multiclassed the example character. So character creation, 3 out of 5. There's good options, but nothing is really amazing, and you can't be a bard. The core mechanic in Ironclaw is actually quite interesting. When you roll for something, you roll all of your associated dice from, your skills and career and race, whatever's applicable, but you don't add them together, you just only take the highest result. And then that is compared to either an opposed roll or a difficulty, which is also rolled, so that's another interesting thing. But you don't want to just watch me sit here and explain the rules, you want to cut away to a whimsically illustrated example. Well, it looks like Peakweek has run into one of those witch hunters that have been giving her trouble. Combat rounds are divided into 3 ranks, in which characters act depending on what type of action they are performing. Because Peakweek is casting a spell, she cannot act until the 2nd rank, whereas the witch hunter acts in the 1st, since he is attacking with a readied and loaded weapon. He rolls to attack and Peakweek rolls to dodge. Since the highest attack die is higher than the highest defense die, the attack is successful. The witch hunter rolls his damage dice and Peakweek rolls her soak dice to resist the damage. Damage and soak dice are compared in descending order. Peakweek avoids 1 damage since her highest soak die was higher than the highest damage die, but fails on her next highest die, and since she does not have a 3rd die, it is treated as a 1, so she ends up taking 2 wounds. And since she took damage, she must also make a resolve test, or be sent reeling and lose her next action. And since ties go to the defender, she succeeds. Now it's Peakweek's turn, and she casts a blindness spell on the witch hunter. The witch hunter must roll to resist the effects of the spell. He fails and is blinded. In the next round, the witch hunter plans to fire his bow again, but since he needs to load it too, he will act in the 2nd rank. Peakweek also acts in the 2nd rank as she is casting another spell, but she acts first because she is a player character. Peakweek casts Lightning Bolt. Because she doesn't have enough skill points in this spell, she must make a casting check. She succeeds and the spell's dice are kept while Peakweek makes a spell throwing check against the witch hunter, who takes a -2 penalty to his defenses from the blindness, meaning he has to reroll twice and take the lowest result. The spell hits and the previously rolled dice are applied as damage. The witch hunter avoids 1 damage but takes the remaining 2 and must make a secondary roll against the damage or be knocked down by electrical spasms, which he fails to do. And that's the basics of it. There is a lot more stuff, including an entire advanced combat system, but I just can't get into everything here because I don't want this video to be an hour long. Anyway, there's some stuff here that I really like. The core mechanics feel really solid and are just different enough to be interesting without being too different. Also, I like the added randomness of rolling the difficulty for things, and also the way that dice are added, but not added together, so your results and your difficulties are never going to go above 12, unlike other games that love big numbers. And of course there are also things that I do not like, such as the casting checks, the range dice, and the resolve checks, because a lot of those things feel like they're the sort of stuff that could turn a few bad rolls into just a bad time. But overall, seems like a pretty good system, fairly quick and easy, but with some depth to it. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 and move on to the next part. So overall, this is a fairly well-written book. Everything is explained really well with lots of examples to help explain things, which obviously I like because I fill these reviews with examples. There are some times and some things that could have been explained better, but just not being the best way possible isn't really bad. Things are also laid out nicely, the sections are in a good order, and a lot of times they make sure to familiarize you with concepts before you really get into them, which does sometimes lead to things being repeated, but it is much better for something to be repeated than to be really hard to find or just left out entirely. For a 300+ page book, it is also a fairly easy read. Readability is generally one of those things that only gets addressed when it's done poorly, so in this book it is done well, and I feel like that deserves recognition, so I shall bestow upon them a 4 out of 5. So this book has a lot of art in it, which is generally something that you would expect from anything furry related. There is a bit of inconsistency in terms of style and quality with the art, but that is just the sort of thing that you get when you have 26 artists working on a book. The layout is very neat, although personally I do generally prefer for books this size to be 2 columns, but They do use a slightly larger than average text size to compensate for that, so it is still a fairly easy read. Some of the formatting choices are a little questionable, but they're not so much bad as they are just non-standard. So overall, fairly professional layout, and any shortcomings are kind of made up for by the very large quantity of mostly delightful illustrations, so I'm going to give them a 3 out of 5. Aside from the aforementioned 24 races and 70 some odd careers, there's also a large number of spells and weapons and armor and just the various other minutiae that make up a role-playing game. There's also an entire different power system called atavism, based on unleashing one's primal animalistic powers. And this is actually where I am most disappointed in this game, because that sounds really cool and like something that would be unique to a world with anthropomorphic animals. And it just comes off feeling really underdeveloped. Like, there are only 7 atavist powers versus 150 plus spells, and it's barely even mentioned anywhere in the book outside of the one section that contains it. And it just doesn't really feel like it's an important part of the world, but it feels like it's an interesting thing that should be. But yeah, overall, they do give you everything you need to play the game and almost everything you need to run it. There is a very small amount of NPCs provided, and I really would have liked to have seen more, because statting up NPCs is just a pain and a thing that I don't like doing. So in terms of content, they get a 3 out of 5. And there we have it, Ironclaw, a fairly solid game throughout. There are some high points and some low points, but nothing that really sticks out as being amazing or terrible. If you're looking for a monster-slaying dungeon crawler, this is definitely not the game for you, but if you're looking for something a little more sophisticated with political intrigue and animal people, then this does that thing very well. Or also, if like you're really into the animal people part, like if that's a selling point for you, that's what this game has. Alright, thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, you can hit all them lovely buttons. And if there are any games that you think I should review, let me know about them in the comments. And if you would like more reviews, you can check out my blog where I do that specific thing. There's a link in the description. Well, until next time.